Okay, so what, maybe we're saying 12.25, go down to 4. Sort of the more we produce above 3.5, we're going to get less and less total welfare. And if we kept going past 4, if we produced 5 or 6 or anything above 4, we're also going to go down below this 12. Think about it the other way. So what if we produce less? So if we're saying this is our maximum, what if we produced a little bit less than 3.5? Well, think intuitively about what would happen if we produced 0. So if we just said there's external damage, let's just not let this market function. These people shouldn't be allowed to create pollution if they're not going to sort of take into account the cost of that pollution. So let's just shut down this market. Well, then our total welfare is going to be 0. And if we go anywhere between 0 and 3.5, we're going to be somewhere between this 0 and 12.250 in terms of our total welfare. So this is sort of the maximum point is when your Pagouvian tax is in place, which is the tax is exactly equal to the external damage, and that's the most that you're going to get. So, if this is the maximum, well, we might could just sort of say, okay, pollution policy is done. There's half the class, sort of, we're done already. We've already found sort of how we can maximize societal welfare if we just sort of can find out the damage caused by pollution, apply that tax, and then we're sort of done with pollution policy. And in some sense, that's actually true. Like, this is sort of the basis that we're going to use for the entirety of this course about how we're looking at pollution policy. And already we should be looking at something that you guys read the paper for and wrote your little writing assignment about optimal pollution. So in this case, when we're talking about optimal pollution, what is our optimal pollution? Well, it's sort of this right here. What we're maximizing society's welfare is by causing still this amount of damage. So if we went down to 0 pollution, the only way we could feasibly do that in this market setup is to produce 0, and that would give us a total welfare of 0. And so we're sort of economically or societally better off by having this market function. But this market is improved by having some government intervention. So we've got some regulation. That regulation puts in this tax, and that sort of makes us better off. So the optimal level of pollution here, it's not 0, it is something, but it's important to note that it is less than in our original one, we had an externality damage of -4. So we have reduced that externality, but we certainly haven't driven it down to 0. We've just reduced it to some small fraction. Okay, so what else could we do? So we've got this tax in place, so we can create this. Let's say we're in a hypothetical society where firms had a lot of clout and they ran a lot of the political process. And so if there's a government that's saying, okay, we're seeing this external damage, we're going to put this tax into place, but there's just no way it's politically going to happen. Even if it's a good idea, politically it's not going to happen. So what else could we do? One of the ideas might be, well, what if we, as the government, could pay these firms to produce less? So we decided that the production of 3.5 units of this good is where we have achieved the society's sort of maximum welfare at. So what if we could convince firms just go in and say, okay, instead of producing 4, how about you guys just cut production back a little bit, and we want you to produce 3.5. How could we do that? Well, we could offer to pay them. We say, okay, for every unit you produce less than before, if you cut back from sort of what last year's was, we'll pay you a unit. So instead of taxing you 1 unit for what you produce, we're going to pay you 1 unit for everything less that you produce. So a traditional subsidy is normally like, everything you produce will pay you something. This is kind of a little bit different in that it's not paying the firm for production, it's paying the firm for less production. If we're saying, okay, if we know it's optimal to produce a little bit less, we'll pay you a little bit to produce a little bit less.